It's an Olympics like no other. From the empty stands to the COVID testing to the masks and social distancing.
United States of America.
But for those athletes who've made it to Tokyo and to the opening ceremony, nothing beats competing on the world's largest stage. And winning feels just as sweet.
Caleb Dressel has another Olympic gold.
Take the American men swimming to gold in the 4x100 freestyle relay, for example. Or this Australian coach dancing uncontrollably when swimmer Ariane Titmus won gold.
It's going crazy. Oh, my goodness.
Titmus narrowly beat American and three-time Olympian Katie Ledecky in a nail-biting race.
This is an Olympics unlike any other. Holding an Olympics in the middle of a pandemic, it's so difficult. It just looks so different and so weird. And yet sports can save these Olympics. Even with all the issues of the Olympic Games, it still is the greatest thing going. When it's good, it's great.
This already unprecedented Olympics continues to make history, with athletes like Anastasia Zolottick becoming the first American woman to win a gold medal in Taekwondo.
I felt like everything was lining up. My training beforehand, my warm-up, and everything was just going perfectly. And I had no doubt in my mind that I was going to win the Olympics yesterday.
Before each match, the Colorado native always releases a primal scream.
I do it to let out the nerves, and then I kind of see like it intimidates people. So I was like, maybe if I scream even louder than them, it'll intimidate them a little bit.
These games breaking all kinds of records, especially in LGBTQ representation. In Rio, there were just 56 out athletes. Now, there are at least 160. And one of them is British diver Tom Daley, who won gold for the first time at this, his fourth Olympics. And he spoke through tears to a new generation.
I hope that any young LGBT person out there can see that no matter how alone you feel right now, you are not alone, and that you can achieve anything.
All of these athletes are facing their biggest moments without their friends and family there to support them in person due to strict COVID protocols. Delayed a year because of the pandemic, the Tokyo Olympics continue to see athletes test positive for COVID-19 as infection rates rise in Japan. Already, there have been at least 153 confirmed COVID cases related to the Olympics, 19 of them athletes. A Dutch rower recently tested positive after competing. He's now self-isolating.
When you're holding an Olympics in the middle of a pandemic and bringing athletes from the world together, many of them unvaccinated, this is what you're going to get. I don't think it's a surprise at all. The hope is it doesn't become a super spreader event.
To prevent the spread of the virus, both athletes and journalists like me have to undergo rigorous testing that began as soon as we arrived.
The amount of paperwork you need to get into Japan is unbelievable. And now I'm waiting for the results of a coronavirus test, which I just took. That will appear here, and then I will be summoned to a window, and then I've got to go through immigration.
At the Olympic Village, officials have implemented rules to try to keep athletes safe.
This is the Olympic Village, a series of high-rise blocks here in the centre of Tokyo, where all the athletes from around the world are staying. But they're only allowed to leave here to go to their events or to train.
Once at an event, even in the midst of Olympic glory, athletes are urged to keep their masks on. Officials warned athletes after US gold medalist Chase Kalish celebrated with his teammate silver medalist Jay Litherland on the podium. But then the International Committee did ease up a little, allowing medalists to take their masks off for just 30 seconds for a few photos. After 2 weeks on the ground here in Tokyo and multiple tests, I dropped off one last PCR test.
Thank you so much. I've officially passed the 14-day quarantine period. My app says I have cleared. Still got to put in my temperature every day.
Outside the village, those who call Tokyo home have mixed feelings about the games occurring in their city at this moment in the pandemic.
Japan has been in a state of emergency for a long time. It just doesn't really make any sense to me. It just seems like they're putting everyone at risk.
I'm so glad to hold the Olympics in Japan, and I watched a ceremony, and I think it was beautiful.
That ceremony opening up the games dazzled those watching on TV. But outside, protesters made their voices heard. Listen to that. That's the sound of police shouting at protesters. There are quite large crowds of them on this street down here below. We're not allowed to go because we're in the Olympic bubble. For University professor Koichi Nakano, the discontent over the games is something he warned about.
A lot of us in Japan are still in disbelief that it's actually happening.
COVID cases here are low compared to other countries, about 5,000 a day at the moment. But Japan has a serious issue, a poor vaccination rate, only around 24%. So a ruined Olympics could be compounded by a Japanese health emergency. How did they get to this point?
I think the Japanese people themselves are quite surprised and shocked. the Japanese people have been rather trusting of the state and have been rather conformist. But in the past decades, there have been cases of, the vaccination programs gone wrong. There's been a sort of rather persistent vaccine hesitancy in Japan.
The controversy and uniqueness of these games leaving even the marquee athletes feeling the pressure. The US women's gymnastics team had an unusually rough start, stumbling at qualifiers. The squad performing lower than expected for a team anticipated to dominate. Inside the arena, the world's most decorated gymnast, Simone Biles, going out of bounds during her floor routine and again on her first vault. Biles shook off her shaky performance by taking to Instagram, writing, "It wasn't an easy day or my best, but I got through it. I truly do feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders at times. The Olympics is no joke."
This is a hallmark moment for USA Gymnastics. Of course, this is the first Olympics for these athletes since the Larry Nassar sex abuse scandal, which we found out about in 2016.
Former USA Gymnastics national team Dr. Larry Nassar was sentenced to 176 years in prison.
You do not deserve to walk outside of a prison ever again.
For sexually abusing hundreds of women and girls. And one of those survivors, superstar Simone Biles.
The survivor of the Larry Nassar scandal, now having finally the ability to go on the grandest stage of all, the Olympic Games. All the changes in USA Gymnastics. Who has been leading the way? Simone Biles.
With all eyes on gymnastics, attention is also now being paid to the athletes' uniforms. The German women's gymnastics team choosing to wear a unitard that covers them from their legs to their ankles, instead of the typically bikini-cut leotard. The German Gymnastics Federation has branded the full unitard a statement against sexualization.
You can tell that it's 2021, and you have women athletes speaking out and saying enough about all of the sexist outfits and the way that they're treated. These female athletes at the Olympics are not here for the male gaze, to appeal to men. They're here to compete.
There are more women than ever competing at the Olympics this year, in part because of two new sports, surfing and skateboarding. Two 13-year-old girls took home gold and silver in skateboarding, some of the youngest Olympic medalists ever.
There is full gender equality across all of those new sports and new events.
This is the centrepiece of the Tokyo Games, a $1.5 billion stadium. But take a look at all the security around it. This is about as close as most Japanese are going to get to their own Olympic Games.
My name is Kyoko Ishikawa.
And you're a huge Olympic fan?
Yes, I have attended all Summer Olympic Games since the Barcelona Olympic Games in 1992.
Kyoko Ishikawa is known as Miss Five Rings. She is a massive Olympics fan, but she understands the need for restrictions and believes the government and the IOC when they say the Games can be kept safe.
It is unfortunate, but it is the way it is. It should be the way it should be, because this is unusual situation under COVID environment, and then don't forget. The enemy is not a government or a committee, but the enemy is the COVID virus.
A philosophical view, perhaps, but for fans like Ishikawa and the athletes she watches, Olympic glory will prevail no matter what.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.